transcript, I'm going to be pointing out those literary elements. So I want you to underline and take notes in your book so that you would be able to go back and identify those places, because those would be the quotes that you pull for examples.
Okay.
All right, we're on page 536,
36.
yes. 536.
The story of an hour.
Yes. Now, first of all, anytime you start to begin an analysis, you should take time to do a brief little author study. You don't have to do his whole life or her whole life, but you need to know a little bit about the author, because who the author was or is influences what they write about. Okay, so let's look at the little blurb we have about Kate Chopin. Fiction writer Kate Chopin, 1851 to 1904, is best known for her novel The Awakening. Now let's talk about the time period in which she lived. Yes. So talk to me about the roles of men and women.
Men were very powerful while women took care of the household.
Housewife.
That's right. They were, I guess you could say that their primary focus was husband and children and home. So much so that they were considered dependent of their husband, and so much so that very few times were they allowed in public without their husbands for fear of embarrassing him. Can you imagine?
Wait,
And
can you
go
say that
public,
again?
that women weren't readily accepted as being out in public without their husbands for fear of embarrassing him. So very much their identity was at home, okay, and their lives were suppressed beyond what was expected of them as a wife and a mother and a home giver. So keep that in mind when we're reading this particular story. When first published, the novel shocked readers with its frank sensuality and the independent spirit of its female protagonist. Well, those two concepts, the female sensuality and independent spirit, those two concepts are not hidden anymore. You can flip on the TV at any given time of the day and you will see a very sensual commercial that exposes a woman. Women are free to have independent spirits in the 21st century, but not then.
Right.
So she was a rebel. She spoke of these things way ahead of her time. All right, and as a result, it was shocking because of how conservative it was. The story that follows, first published in Vogue in 1894, shows a similar defiance of a socially prescribed expectation and norm. Well, what does that mean? When society has a prescribed expectation of the norm and a person goes outside of it, they're condemned or judged or looked upon wrongly, aren't they? They're in essence belittled for not fitting a prescribed norm. I remember I was 30 when I got my first tattoo. I've been teaching since I was 21. I went to my first teacher's meeting, and I had a tattoo on my right ankle, and I sat down across my ankles, and all the old teachers sitting around looked at me like, trash. And I thought, ooh, okay, well, all right. And I mean, I felt very judged. And times have changed, but that wasn't the prescribed norm. Teachers aren't supposed to have tattoos. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I know a lot of them that do. And so it's no big deal now, but I'm sure you have some of the expectations of not fitting in the typical mode. I have one student this semester, he's fabulous. His hair is just nuts. It sticks out like this. You can't help but to notice him. Okay, and he doesn't care. If I could get away with it, I would too. Right? And so he doesn't fit the norm, and he's okay with that. But when she wrote about such things, it was very taboo because everybody was very cookie cutter, and everybody had a specific way they were supposed to look. Okay? All right. Nick, do you have your own copy? Nick, do you have your own copy?
No.
Okay, so I asked a while ago, because guess what? I have a copy for you. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, super. No problem. All right.
So do we need to basically do that in our assignment is
It
break
helps.
down the
It helps.
author?
Yeah, it really does help. Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, and this is a heads up too. Those of you who choose a song, make sure you understand that sometimes the singer of the song is not the writer. You need to know who the writer of the song is, not the singer of the song. Okay, so that's the difference. Sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they're different. Okay. All right, so the story of an hour. This title tells us that everything we're about to read happened within 1 hour. It happens within 1 hour time. Okay? Knowing that Mrs. Mallard, I want you to underline her name, she's important, obviously. Knowing that Mrs. Mallard was afflicted, that's a diction choice. Afflicted. Okay? What does the word afflict
cause pain or to cause something
Yes,
On-
to be
on-
imposed,
or imposed?
to be inflicted,
Yeah.
okay? And so it has an element, much more than sick. It's like it's imposed upon her,
Yeah, right.
that she suffers from it, all right? So that's a diction choice, and you would explain its effect, all right? So, Mrs. Mallard was afflicted with heart trouble. Great care was taken to break to her as gently as possible the news of her husband's death. So we have two conflicts here. We have her heart trouble, and we have her husband's death. All right, so already right there, two particular examples of conflict. It was her sister Josephine who told her in broken sentences, veiled hints that revealed and half concealing. Her husband's friend Richards was there too, near her. It was he who had been in the newspaper office when intelligence of the railroad disaster was received, with Brentley Mallard's name leading the list of killed. Look at that diction choice. Not deceased, not missing, but killed. There's a distinct difference when someone tells a person, this
They've been
person has
killed,
been killed, or this
murdered.
person has been passed away.
Yeah.
So killed implies much more brutality. Okay, so that's diction choice. See, we're analyzing. All right.
Diction.
He had only taken the time to assure himself of its truth by a second telegram, and it has him to forestall any less careful, less tender friend in bearing the sad message. She did not hear the story as many women have heard the same, with a paralyzed inability to accept its significance. What does that mean? When you're told the truth,
She,
shock.
yeah,
You know, with the,
she didn't want to accept.
Paralyzed.
yeah, good. And so she didn't accept it that way. What did she do? Says she wept at once with a sudden wild abandonment in her sister's arms. So it's, it just came from her. It was right there.
So I got a question. So after you read the paralyzed ability, that's the example? Is she wept once?
She wasn't paralyzed by it. She got it, and she wept at once.
Oh, okay,
So it's the difference between someone who says, I don't believe this,
okay.
and someone who just reacts. Okay, so that what does that tell us? It tells us that that emotion was just right there upon her. She didn't have to search for it. Okay, all right. When the storm of grief had spent itself, she went away to her room alone. She would have no one follow her. There stood, facing the open window. That's universal symbolism. Open window. What does an open window symbolize? Freedom.
Fresh air.
Opportunity, something fresh, something anew, a way out. Okay, so that's symbolism. A comfortable, roomy armchair. Into this she sank, pressed down by physical exhaustion that haunted her body and seemed to reach into her soul. So that's imagery. We see her sitting there, looking out this open window. She could see in the open square before her house the tops of trees. What do trees universally symbolize?
Life?
Life, prosperity, growth, okay? So that's a symbol. They were all a quiver. Look at that diction choice. The trees were a quiver. They didn't shake. Specifically, the word a quiver. What does a quiver look like? Somebody show me.
Quiver.
Moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's excitement. It's energy. Okay, if you've ever been really
Cold.
excited, yeah. Okay, there's an energy behind it. Yes, with new spring life. Spring is a symbol. Newness, rebirth. The delicious breath of rain. Rain is also a symbol. Washes away dirt and the old.
Depression.
Yes, what was in the air. The street below, a peddler was crying his wares. The notes of distant song which someone was singing reached her faintly, and countless sparrows were twittering in the eaves. Now this whole paragraph, through its imagery and through its symbolism, answer this for me. Does it reflect what she's supposed to be feeling? No. So it's situationally ironic.
It's like she already accepted it and she's ready to like move forward.
It just doesn't make sense. If she's learned of her husband's death, and now she's sitting here and what she's seeing is a reflection of newness and excitement, it doesn't reflect what she's supposed to be feeling. So not only is it imagery and symbolism, but there is situational irony going on. See how we're analyzing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not retelling. All right,
So there's kind of like a story behind the story.
absolutely. There were patches of blue sky showing here and there through the clouds that had met and piled one above the other in the west, facing her window. What does west symbolize? East symbolizes,
Old.
east symbolizes
Sunset.
Sunrise.
sunrise, and west is sunset.
How
So
should you?
life is
How do you
she-
know that?
The sunrise is at east and sets.
No,
west.
no. Like, how do you? How can you like, I mean, like, me, when I read it, how should I know that the West meant?
Well, you have to go back, and this is a good question. I had the same question last class. When you're studying, you're gonna get to be an expert on the passage that you choose. So when you read and you read and you read and you think, I think this might be a symbol, then you might need to do a little Google search. What does the West symbolize? And that will help you. If you've got a keen insight on this means something, and I'm not quite sure what it is, yeah, because you can't know everything. That's an intelligent question. But the East every day is a birth. The West every day is a death. Okay? So West symbolizes here that the life as she knew it is no longer. It's the death of the life as she knew it because of the death of her husband. She sat with her head thrown back upon the cushion of the chair, quite motionless, except when a sob came up her throat and shook her, and the child who has cried itself to sleep continued to sob in its dreams. So there's imagery also there. If you've ever seen a child who's cried so hard, even when he falls asleep and his little body just shakes, okay, that's what her body is doing. She was young. Now, how many of you are shocked? Did you think she was
Back
old?
then, they marry when they were young.
Right, they did. Did anybody else think that she was old?
I did.
Yeah, me too. The first time I read this, and it was like, she's young, what? So that took me by surprise. That was situationally ironic. Contextually, why do we think that she's old? Yeah, Mrs. Mallard and heart troubles, okay? But here Chopin, the author, tells us that she was young. Oh, this adds so much more to the story, okay? She was young, with a fair, calm face whose lines bespoke repression and even a certain strength. But now there was a dull stare in her eyes, whose gaze was fixed away off yonder on one of those patches of blue sky. It was not a glance of reflection, but rather indicated a suspension of intelligent thought. So she's sitting there just staring deeply and thinking, okay? There was something coming to her, and she was waiting for it, fearfully. What was it? She did not know. It was too subtle and elusive to name, but she felt it, creeping out of the sky, reaching toward her through the sounds, the scents, the color that filled the air. Now her bosom rose and fell tumultuously. So that's symbolic of her womanly feelings. She was beginning to recognize this thing that was approaching to possess her, and she was striving to beat it back with her will, as powerless as her two white slender hands would have been. When she abandoned herself, a little whispered word escaped her slightly parted lips. She said it over and over under her breath. Free, free, free. All right. How many of you are taken by surprise? Her husband is dead. She's sitting there alone, and she's going,
Like she's happy.
Yeah, like
Yes.
it was miserable.
yes. All right. So now do you see the importance of the imagery and the symbolism of that setting of the outside window? Yes. She's elated that he is deceased. The vacant stare and a look of terror that had followed it went from her eyes. They stayed keen and bright. Her pulses beat fast, and the coursing blood warmed and relaxed every inch of her body. She did not stop to ask if it were a monstrous joy that held her. A clear and exalted perception enabled her to dismiss the suggestion as trivial. Now she's foreshadowing. She knew that she would weep again when she saw the kind, tender hands folded in death. She's imagining what it would be like to see her deceased husband. The face that had never looked save with love upon her, fixed and gray and dead. She's young, he was
Oh,
old. Okay, so this helps us understand why she might be elated that he's passed. But she saw beyond that bitter moment a long procession of years to come that would belong to her absolutely. Belong to her absolutely. Remember her role, her prescribed role. She was under his rule. And now her life is her own. Okay?
She's free.
Yes. And she opened and spread her arms out to them in welcome. There would be no one to live for during those coming years. She would live for herself. There would be no powerful will bending her in that blind persistence with which men and women believe they have a right to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. Let me explain that line, especially to those of you who aren't married or in a serious relationship. When you're married or in a serious relationship, whatever the needs of your significant other are imposed upon your own needs, okay? Laughs the husband. So, it just got cold in here and I can't control it. But anyway, speaking of, let's say that you're at home in the living room, okay? And you're perfectly fine, the temperature is fine for you. And your significant other says, I'm cold, and looks at you. You get up out of your comfortable chair and you turn the heat up. That's an imposition. That's what she's saying here. No longer